All right, and welcome to the Mavericast. I am Andrew, your host. I'm here along with Yorgey.
Hey.
And Derek, new to the show. So Derek, please give an introduction.
I'm Derek Wagner. I'm a freshman at Pitt. I'm a stats major, and I've been a conservative for a while. I grew up in Western Maryland, where there's a fairly decent conservative presence, unlike the rest of my state.
Martin O'Malley. Boo.
Rain tax. So, yeah, coming to Pitt, I was pleasantly surprised by the conservative presence, because I knew Pitt was very liberal. So, I'm glad that I found the college Republicans in time.
Absolutely. So, what are your future plans? Where do you want to be 5 years from now? Is sort of the question we ask.
I'd like to be in grad school in 5 years. Sure. Partially because I don't have any direction beyond that yet, but
I'm sure you'll find a job with stats.
And so, obviously you said you're a conservative, but how do you classify your own political beliefs,
I'm actually pretty moderate.
Okay.
I really like Rand Paul. He's probably the conservative icon that I identify with most right now.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite president is Jefferson, not Reagan, which distances me from a lot of current conservative thought.
Mm-hmm. And were you old enough to vote in the primary last year? Who did you vote for?
I voted for Cruz because it was him and Trump.
Yeah.
And I did not get on the Trump train until very, very, very late.
And this is the second time in 2 weeks I'm mentioning this. I voted for Kasich, so it's all out there.
Yeah, you don't write in Paul Ryan, so it's good.
I'm good by Yorgey's standard. So just to give just a brief update of what we're trying to do today. I originally wanted to call this episode Trump's 100 Days, but I changed it yesterday to just Trump's policy plans, because some are going to last longer than 100 days, some are going to take effect after. And the real reason I want to do this is because Trump has had, obviously he's had a tendency to be somewhat vague, and he's shifted on his policies. So I think there's so much misinformation out there about what Trump's specific policies actually are. And this could be a platform for us to share them and get our quick opinions on them as well. So, before we get into the nitty-gritty, I want each of you to give your own, Derek kind of gave a summary already, but your own history with Trump's campaign. Were you a supporter early on? When did you come around? And I'm going to start with Yorgey, of course.
I guess when he first announced, I guess I wasn't really that politically involved by any means, but I would probably say that I was definitely, Republican leanings from just based off my family. And I guess when Trump ran, hearing what the news was covering about what he said when he first declared when he was running, I was like, oh my god, this is crazy, or this is just kind of funny, and the wall, and when he said he'd be the best jobs president God ever created, that was hilarious. But then, I guess he was just so entertaining to me that him inadvertently got me involved, because it just made me start to think at some point, what did I actually believe in and what is actually right? And so I guess I just delved towards it and to the right, and that led me to Shapiro, and then that led me back to just liking Trump even more.
All right, Derek, you already gave a brief summary, but what did you think from the very outset of Trump's campaign?
From the beginning, I was not on board. I was more of a traditional conservative. I was praying that Romney would run again, because I really liked Romney. But as people kept dropping out, my big grievance this election cycle was that the media killed every single competitor one by one, paving the way for Trump, even as they were crying, "Oh, we can't let Trump win." They destroyed everyone who had a chance. But so eventually, coming down to election day, I was very, very concerned. I wrote an article about not shaming third-party voters, because I was considering voting for either Johnson or, writing in someone like Paul Ryan, because I'm a principled conservative. But then on election day, I wound up clicking the Trump button. I didn't even realize I had done it until I reviewed my ballot, and I'm like, oh, I guess I'm voting for Trump. So now I feel like I'm tasked with defending him because I voted for him.
My own history with him, I was very curious from the outset. I was not a supporter for a long, long time. But even in early 2015, when he was making rounds at CPAC, he was making rounds at different conservative conventions across the country, I was very curious about what he had to say, because I knew this was somebody who was highly intelligent. This is somebody who can shake up the system from the outside. And I was so happy when he jumped in, but I couldn't support him because he wasn't running, in my view, as a traditional conservative as I would like. So I bounced around for a while. I went with Rubio for a very small amount of time until he stooped down to Trump's level. When he started using the insults, reading tweets out, comparing hand sizes and whatever else that entails. But, and after it was all said and done, after Kasich lost, after Cruz lost, it was one of the toughest decisions I think I've ever had to make about coming around to Trump's campaign. But when I did, I went at it with everything I had, because he was the Republican nominee. He stands up for what I believe in, and I felt like Derek, I had to defend him, and I hope he earns my vote again in 2020. So just a couple more things before we get in. So this is the most concentrated amount of Republican power since the 1920s. And this is also a chance for the Republicans to prove that we can govern. It's been a complaint for the last 6 years that we've been obstructionists, that we haven't been getting meaningful policy passed. And this is our real chance to prove for at least the next 2 years, 4 years, that we can get policy accomplished. We can set goals and have our team basically achieve them. And no matter what anybody thinks, Trump is going to be president on January 20th at noon. He, not my president. I'm sorry, you're done. He is going to be president. You better, and if anybody's listening who's not a supporter, you better be knowledgeable about his policies, because this is what's coming and this is what he plans to do. So with the inauguration coming up, like I said, noon on Friday, this podcast will be released as Donald Trump is president. So I want to ask you guys, what are your plans for the inauguration? I know what my plans are, so we'll start with yours.
What are you going to do, Derek?
I will be attending a protest downtown to go report for the Mav.
Oh, cool.
Excellent, yeah.
We've got a new member named Eric, and he and I are planning to go down there. It's at like 4. So I'm hoping to get some good stuff. I hope things don't get bad, like they were on election night.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I just want to, see how it is, the last death throes of the Bernie Sanders movement crying to themselves.
My class, I have one class from 11 to noon, so I won't see what comes before, but noontime I'm running to my room, turning my TV on, putting on my hat, and I get to see my president speak. That's going to be the best part.
Yep. And I will be in DC. I will be there with Kyle. I will be there with Marlo, our editor-in-chief and only founder. And I'll be there with Tim, who's our managing editor. And we'll do a little bit of reporting. I may write an opinions piece. But just regardless, I'm so super excited to go, because it's truly, it's an historic moment. No matter what you think, this is a turning point in American history, I believe, and the history of the world for that matter. With everything going on around on the globe that we've detailed many times. But this is a real rare chance to witness history as it goes on, and I'm very excited for it.
Oh yeah, 750,000 people are expected to come, so that's gonna be nuts.
And I may disagree with Obama now, but I still remember as a 5th grader watching his inauguration on TV. We stuffed our entire grade into a little classroom. One of my teachers was crying. It was, inaugurations are so historic, and say what you want about the candidate, it's just, a testament to the greatness of America. We get to do this peaceful transition at least every 8 years.
And this is something I did not put in the notes for the podcast, because I wanted to surprise you guys. We've bashed Obama our fair share, whether it's in the paper, or whether it's on the podcast. I want to hear one thing that you guys, and I'll give one too, one thing that we respect about President Obama.
One thing, huh? Although he gets ridiculed for kind of, being on a social scale, like that cool guy, while doing nothing. That I gotta say that is kind of pretty cool of a president to do that. it definitely has helped his image a lot, and it kind of just shows that a president's kind of like aware of culture.
I respect Obama's efforts for like the environment because Doug won't appreciate this. Hey, Doug. But
go ahead and comment. We'll take your debate questions. Go ahead, Derek.
I do enjoy having a good environment, and all the work he's done internationally, I think, will have positive effects in the future. Because say what you want about global warming, pumping out, greenhouse gases is still bad for the planet, regardless. I mean, pollution. You look at China, where they have pretty much unfettered unfettered pollution, and it's terrible. You can't breathe the air there, and I don't want that to be the future for our planet.
Yeah, I mean, you're right about that. I mean, we need to kind of look into how we can become environmentally, like, aware, I guess. I argue that it should be done more in a free market sense, but I guess if we need, like, an initial start point for it, I guess, I mean, even if in some ways he's played as the bad guy in doing that for, like, regulation sense, but, yeah, I guess it was, like, in a way, if we look at things in the long run, like a good.
One thing I respect his optimism. It's something that I think it's a patriotic sense that we all should share as Americans, that our best days truly lie ahead. And I think whether I may disagree with the way that he plans to get us there or disagree with his worldview, I do believe that he's a patriot at heart, and I do believe that he loves this country. And I respect his optimism the same way I would respect it in a Romney or, as a Republican president like George W. Bush. And I think it's admirable no matter who it is. So, as we just praised him, we're now going to get into the Affordable Care Act and probably nix all of the compliments that we had just gave him. So, Derek, I know you wrote a piece, so give a quick synopsis.
All right, my piece, which was published last week.
And we can plug it in the link dump so people can see it.
It's about how Obamacare is supposed to be his crowning achievement, but now we have to get rid of it. It's terrible policy. It is socialism in the purest sense of the word, because he took an entire industry and made it completely dependent on the federal government, which has resulted in all sorts of terrible outcomes. Premiums are soaring, which will lead to more people without insurance, which is very ironic and was not the goal of the policy at all. And now the Republicans are facing a really tricky issue with trying to get rid of it, because it so firmly cemented the healthcare industry into the federal government that taking the federal government out, it's not just going to be pulling teeth, it's going to be major open heart surgery trying to remove this tumor from the government. Like, healthcare and the government should not be so closely intertwined.
Yeah. And especially in our system, and I know Yorgey, the business major, you can probably speak to this better than I can, but our system has been established and well set up to the point we have insurance companies, we have companies competing against one another, that making a leap to single payer will never happen in this country. Even trying something like Obamacare it was destructive. We've seen premiums rise, it's unworkable, and it's not right for our system. So, and Yorgey, you have anything you would like to add?
Well, I guess like what a real single payer system. I mean, I guess that would be really interesting to kind of critique. But as far as like what Obamacare has done, I mean, on just like a consumer end and for the business, just like the mandates for fines. I mean, it's just one other thing on top of businesses that they're already screwed upon.
Yeah.
And for mandates for citizens, people are now stuck in like the lower middle class where they can't afford insurance not provided by the government, but on the other hand, they cannot afford the insurance provided by the government, and they're still fine.
And one thing I want to mention is because we always see the uninsured statistic versus insured statistic, and I think the way it's set up is it's very incorrect, because of course those without insurance looks low because you're forcing people to buy insurance. So naturally it's going to be a little bit off. But let's get more into the policy details that we want to do. So this has been a huge part of Republican campaigns since 2010, saying that we're going to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act. And the repeal part is easy.
Mm-hmm.
It's the replace part that is going to be difficult. And we can talk about, where we're going to go from here. But it's important because, like I said earlier, the Republicans have to prove that we can govern, and we have to prove that we can pass a substantive replacement plan. And I know Rand Paul has taken the leadership on this plan. And Derek, do you want to detail?
Yeah. So Rand Paul right now has fully drafted a replacement that could be, enacted right as they repeal Obamacare. So we don't have to worry about the delay anymore, assuming that the other Republicans get on board, but Mitch McConnell is a big repeal and delay person, and he's currently...
That's crazy.
Yorgey has some choice words to describe Mitch McConnell from time to time. I can confirm that.
Researching my article, I found that the repeal and delay strategy would cause a lot of damage. You'd have a lot of people losing their insurance with no real option to get insurance back because the healthcare market will be totally chaotic.
Mm-hmm.
So you need a replacement. And there are a lot of parts of Obamacare that people really don't want to get rid of.
Especially, and Trump, yeah. Trump has said that, yeah.
Like, the pre-existing conditions clause in Obamacare was great and was the kind of thing that, even the Republicans back when Obamacare was being drafted, they were for that.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't want to completely dump the entirety of Obamacare, but we need to get rid of the dangerous mandates that are killing the health insurance industry right now.
Yeah, and I mean, like, the whole repeal, the whole delay part is just really, I don't know, to me it just sounds really, funny, just because, the one big thing is, while I do disagree with, I guess, fundamentally, the whole concept of Obamacare, now that it's already, existed, the problem that will arise is what do we do with the people who, will be uninsured. And, I hope that the replacement plan in the short run will be good for them. If everything works well, and if these state lines are lifted and we have pretty low premiums, then that's gonna, that will be good, because then that kind of shifts into the people who can't afford it. But I think this whole pre-existing condition thing will kind of help alleviate that.
The main goal of Rand Paul's replacement plan is to make cheap insurance affordable, so that realistically everyone could be buying insurance. They just won't have to be going to the government for it. Because you think about college students, and right now, because of Obamacare, we can be on our parents' policies, but eventually, once we graduate and become, full-fledged, young adults in 20s and 30s, we might not need full Obamacare mandated health insurance plans. We might want something much cheaper that we can deal with on our entry-level salaries, or, for many people who don't have the privilege to attend college, on, lower-paying jobs. They can't afford to pay for the entirety of a health insurance plan. But if they could buy a little bit here and there, that would be really good, because it would keep them from having to, deal with emergencies with no, safety net. But they wouldn't have to be, spending all of their money on a health insurance plan that they really don't need.
And breaking down state lines, I think, is so important, because living in Pittsburgh, you have two options. You have two pseudo monopolies that barely compete against each other because they have all of the customers that they could possibly need. They have no incentive to drive down prices. And I can't even imagine living in a state like Rhode Island. I can look for details, but I can't imagine there'd be many competing companies. So when state lines are broken down, which is Trump has detailed in his book in various different policy positions, then I think that'll help the free market side of things. And Price is certainly a proponent of that. Did you guys watch Price's hearings today?
I wasn't able to.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't able to watch his hearings, but I am a big fan of Price, because he has been an advocate for keeping the pre-existing conditions clause,
Yep.
And just returning insurance regulation to the states, because my personal philosophy. The states can do whatever they want. They can regulate, anything that they want, because if people don't like it, they can just move. And local government tends to be more effective than federal government. So right now, price ideologically is aligned with some of the really good components that can come out of this replacement plan. Unlike some of Trump's nominees where they seem to be at odds with the Republican majority, Price seems to be falling right along where the Republicans should go.
All right, and with that, I'd say let's move on to our next topic, which is going to be resident business major and Pitt Maverick publisher's specialty, tax reform. And I know, what was it, 2 weeks ago on the podcast, you said that tax reform was one of the biggest things you were looking forward to. So I knew we had to have you detail what you think. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So, thank you. But yeah, I think the tax reform should be a priority. I mean, I know like immigration and stuff too, but I figure if for things to work in parallel, this should definitely be it. Especially with what I see is a lot of red tape. I mean, you have, as of right now, Trump has presented a lot of hopefulness to the small businesses. The last, I think it was the Small Business Confidence Index. It takes into consideration what your outlook for the future and what you think about the present. And apparently, the factor of their hopefulness in the future for Trump was so high, it would just cause a shift. And I mean, even the Central Penn Business Journal, small businesses in York County were even saying how it will renew consumer confidence as well into buying. I guess to go into specifics with the tax policy is he wants to get, for businesses, he wants to definitely lower taxes for the most part, and he wants to lower capital gains and whatnot, which will, I mean, that's just less money to the government, and I guess hypothetically that's just more money that the company could just return in as an investment towards their own businesses. I mean, that just implies a better service. But for the consumer end, not only since you're repealing these mandates from the Affordable Care Act, but such things like the estate tax, so money that your great-grandfather had that got taxed a gajillion times will get 60% of it won't go to the government, or 40% or whatever. And then the tax plan for just the average citizen, he's definitely working with the middle class and the lower middle class, in the sense that what kind of deductibles you'll get. It's more of just the tax code changes deductibles based off of your income, or the rate of your deductible based off your income and the amount of children you have. So if you're making around, if you in a spouse make a combined income of $50,000 a year, you're getting a pretty nice deductible, especially with your kids too. So I mean, in a way, I mean, it's really doing a lot. It's really giving you a lot of choice in what you can spend your money on, I would say. I mean, if this goes in tandem with his trade, and the trade has a best case scenario, then I mean, we're looking at a really consumer friendly 4 years. So,
and I don't know all of the specifics, but I think he wants to collapse the tax code into, the brackets into 3 brackets. And I'm happy because this is somewhere where we can get help from Paul Ryan, from House Republicans, who finally have an avenue to pass their legislation through. And I think that the Paul Ryan tax plan wants you to, I mean, it's a postage card that you can fill out your taxes on a postcard and mail it in.
Yeah, I would like to see, I don't know if Cruz would have any significance in it, but I would like to see how we'd like to deal with the IRS, because I feel like that's got to get trimmed. Yeah, it's got cut, actually. Yeah. No, they suck. They suck.
We will have the Libertarians on eventually, and I do want to get their take on the IRS. And so, and I know there would be modest tax cuts, like we said, across the board. And I mean, just exactly like you said, it's going to help small businesses, especially because I don't think people understand that they file under personal taxes, that they're not going through as corporate taxes. And as we mentioned, corporate tax is a good way to conclude. I know he wants to bring the corporate tax rate down to 15% from 35%.
Yeah.
A big thing that I think we have to remember is if we're talking about simplifying the tax code and cutting taxes, we have to cut spending. I mean, it'll be great getting rid of all the Obamacare mandates and the spending from that, but there's so much waste in the government that we need to trim. I hope that in the next 4 to 8 years, we get at least one balanced budget. At least one.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's going to be a lot of spending the first few years because, the wall, but...
We'll get to that. We'll get to infrastructure, yeah.
But we need to balance the budget eventually. We
President-
haven't done it since the 90s. We haven't even passed a budget in the past 8 years.
President-elect Trump did say that during his first 100 days, he would require that all departments come in and list like wasteful spending and expenses so that they can be trimmed.
And just looking for overlap where we can see it, between different departments would be a great way to start too.
Like, there's like $1 million go. Like, why are we paying celebrities? Like, I don't why.
So with that, I want to move into foreign policy goals and talk about our preparation for today. I read the majority of Crippled America in my preparation for the podcast today, along with a whole host of news sources. I mean, I plugged the Huffington Post pieces, the NPR, Fox News, anything you can think of. We looked at it. We tried to decide what we include in the podcast today. So the most it's still stark to me after all this time when I was reading Crippled America, which I'm now waving around the room. That his worldview, because I think it's so fascinating, because he does not see the world the same way that the two parties do. He does not see the world. I mean, I cannot think of somebody who I can compare him to, because the way that he views things is with regard to like a contract. So we're supplying troops to South Korea, but they're not giving us anything back. We're giving troops to Japan, and they're not giving us anything back. Same with Saudi Arabia. And I'm looking to see if I can get an exact quote. Quote from the book: "We defend Germany, we defend Japan, we defend South Korea. They're powerful and wealthy countries. We get nothing from them." And this goes against just the way that American foreign policy has been shaped for so long. And I'm curious to see where he goes from here, because I've compared his foreign policy to Nixon, actually, because Trump sees the world like a realist. He sees, how can I ally myself with this person? How can I work with this person? It's going to put him in unconventional areas, and it's going to go against the grains of U.S. policy. So I want to open it. If you guys have any comments, go ahead.
I mean, it's definitely a nice shift, I would say, at the very least, because I guess for the most part, why we deployed those troops there is more of like reasons for containment of certain groups than anything. So like, I don't know, if I kind of think of like how we go about with these alliances, I mean, if we have like a trade deal, that just benefits both parties. But if it's a trade deal and we're putting troops, that doesn't seem like fair to me. But at the same time, I think that, I don't know, it's like competitive at a military level at that point. You're just telling people, get good.
Right now, when it comes to countries like South Korea and Japan, over in Asia, I think I kind of disagree with Trump saying we don't get anything from them. We get regional allies that if we didn't have that, what would China be doing? China would be doing what we're doing. They would say, oh, South Korea, we'll protect you from your crazy neighbors up north. Japan, let's make a deal. And we've already seen that other governments are trying to influence the Japanese Prime Minister Abe. That's his name, right?
Shinzo Abe.
Shinzo Abe, yeah. I think Putin was meeting with him before Trump was.
It was just a dispute about these islands in North Japan.
Yeah. Putin obviously wants influence in that region because, just like the U.S., Russia is aiming to have influence all over the globe. So I think that the way that we help defend South Korea and Japan is really important, because we could lose our influence to China or even Russia, because Russia is not just part of Europe. It has, it stretches a long way, and Putin doesn't ignore the fact that, he has, things at risk in Asia.
And so also, he called NATO obsolete as well in the last couple of days. And there's not too much policy on this front, so I don't want to spend too much time here. But I just have a couple of questions that I think we can hash out, somewhat quickly. Towards Russia, do you believe Trump will be soft on Russia? As he said, I don't know Putin. He's not my best friend.
So, like, based off what Trump has tweeted following, like, everyone freaking out about the Russians, I only just feel that this was just after Trump was actually just briefed on everything.
Yeah.
It seems like he is definitely trying to be forward-thinking and trying to work with Russia, but at the same time not give them, like, a free pass. Like he said, what do you want to do? I forget what the oh yeah, it was he wanted to lift some sanctions, probably the ones that were just recently imposed on them, for a deal for them to reduce their nuclear armaments. Or to get them out of Lithuania, which I think is good. I mean, we should definitely work with Russia.
And that's interesting because the way that he uses, I mean, this is a bargaining chip right now for him, and nobody is going to negotiate like him, you know.
And everything a lot of things we can do with Russia can be a big bargaining chip. If not, it warms relations. Like, as far as, I mean, I guess just as like an aside, as far as we know Putin, for the most part, has a weary reputation for America, but we don't know the general Russian feel towards America, and I think we can't forget that. But like when it comes to Syria and stuff, oh yeah, no, I think we should help Russia in taking out ISIS. They're doing a fine job, and the overall objective in Syria is fine. But I think our increased aid to take out ISIS would really help things out in the region.
One last thing I'd like to say real quick is the past 8 years we've learned that not working with Russia doesn't work. Russia's done whatever they want. So I think Trump is trying to say we need to work with Russia because they're going to do their own thing if we don't. But we can have some sort of control over, the Kremlin if we actually start trying to get along with them.
I think that's a good way to put it. So also, he made comments about Merkel and Putin that I think kind of fall in the same line. He said that he would treat them as equals upon taking office and then decide who he wants to work with more. And my last question is, do you think Trump will interfere in the French and German elections coming up? Le Pen was spotted at Trump Tower last week.
Well, if it's like the same stuff that I guess French, I mean, I don't know. It's just like, would he like a politician more than anyone else? If he opens his mouth about something, just because who he is right now is gonna bring some influence.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I don't know. Like it was the same thing back and forth here, right? It's just that they were less significant.
I think his only interference would be the way that Farage influenced our election. He met with Trump once, and people freaked out, but it really had no impact in the end. I think
because Farage refused to endorse him. He said something like, "I wouldn't vote for Hillary Clinton if she paid me" or something.
That was so nuts.
But it was so obvious. Yeah. And we've written about that on the Maverick as well. Yeah.
But I think especially with the French election, which I think is the most critical one coming up this year, if Le Pen wins, it's because there are deep issues in France that the people think only Le Pen can answer. I personally don't support Le Pen. But
I'm with you.
I like Fionn, and we can plug the Mavericks piece about that in the description. So now, I mean, this is Trump's specialty, what I'm going to move into next, and that's trade. And we knew that he was going to do this. So while we're recording, the World Economic Forum in Davos is going on in Switzerland. And it's very fascinating because usually a figure like Merkel would attend, but this year she didn't. Because I think the Davos class, what we're referring to, the elites, the multinationals, the people, the tech CEOs who like someone like Elon Musk. I know George Soros is usually in attendance at Davos, and this year Trump has sent envoys to Davos, but there has been a lacking of people there from the UK especially as well, and this is telling because the other day the Chinese leader fascinatingly said that he thinks that globalization is inevitable, but given what we've seen over the last year, I don't know if that's true. So the first thing I want to talk about is Trump's free trade deal with what I'm calling the unshackled UK because of Theresa May, who just announced that there will be a clean break from the European Union. And she's going to meet with Trump. I believe she's meeting with him on Friday after he takes the oath. So I'm very excited, and to quote Trump, I'm a big fan of the UK. We're going to work very hard to get it done quickly and done properly. And this is such a change of pace from Obama, who said that the US would be at the back of the queue when they negotiate. And what's funny about that, I read another book, The Bad Boys of Brexit, and they say that the back of the queue, they knew Obama's speechwriters didn't write the speech because queue is a British word for line. So they knew that British speechwriters wrote Obama's speech when he gave it to them. But I mean, just reactions you guys have?
I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm all about it. Yeah. And I know that the UK wants to negotiate trade deals with other English-speaking countries immediately, like New Zealand, Australia.
Oh yeah, that whole Commonwealth thing.
Yeah. And I'm excited. I'm excited for them. I'm excited for us to have the trade deal with them. And also, we're going to move on to the renegotiation of NAFTA, which Trump can do with executive authority. And he might have unlikely help from Justin Trudeau, of all people, has said that he's willing to renegotiate NAFTA with Trump. And this is an issue that Trump hammered from the beginning of his campaign. So,
I mean, I think at the very best, we should look over trade deals over certain periods of time and been like, okay, you know what? How is this? Mm-hmm. But yeah, no, that's great. I can't even believe it. I mean, now it's just left. What's Mexico going to do unless us and Canada strong arms them?
I think I was very surprised when I found out that the sexy socialist from Canada was actually willing to renegotiate NAFTA and work with Trump, because I figured, he would take the stance that all the leftists in America have, which is don't work with them. We're going to obstruct. We're going to make it 4 years of hell for Donald Trump. Instead, Trudeau has decided, in a little bit of wisdom, that working with his neighbors is a good thing, especially on trade deals where they have to work together. So I'd love to see what's going to happen. Hopefully we can get a much better deal, a deal that the U.S. wins on more, even though we've had a lot of winning.
So, do you guys believe that the TPP is potentially in its final days? Because, there's bipartisan support and there's bipartisan opposition.
Oh, it's already... I thought it was since he got in, I thought Republicans were saying it was out the door.
I was going to say that, but I saw a Wall Street Journal article the other day that said that Trump could potentially revive it if he gets better terms. That's the only reason that it's worth mentioning. Yeah.
That does make sense. It's not like... he's not doing it because they're from Asia. It was just like the deal. The terms were really crap.
And this could just be another genius bargaining technique from Trump saying, we're not going to do a deal, I'm walking away from the table, and then he's begged back to get better terms.
Yeah, and that's a tactic he even said he was going to do with Russia. He said, hey, if we can't get a deal with them, then okay, let's stop.
I'd love to see... renegotiation. I don't want to just trash the deal.
Yeah.
Because, again, China is the elephant in the room. We can't let China make trade deals because they have lots of manufacturing power, and that means that they have power over their neighbors. But if we have a good trade deal with the other countries in that region, it limits China's power. And right now, to me, the only country that represents a real economic threat to us is China.
Absolutely. And so just some more statistics to plug in. The IMF is expecting a boom in the U.S. economy, 2.3% growth this year and 2.5% next year. So this is the Trump bump extended over. And
is that really like the Trump bump, or is it just like...
It's an enactment of his policies, yeah. Okay, so immigration. There will, and this issue especially was one I wanted to touch on because I felt there was so much misinformation. He's not going to deport 11 million people. It's not going to happen. So he's going to focus on the 2 million people of those 11 million who have committed crimes, which is not unlike President Obama, who deported 2.5 million people, the most for any U.S. president, and 91% of whom committed a crime while they were here.
I can't remember where I read it from, but isn't it true that they want to impose if you come here illegally, isn't it supposed to be that a 2-year sentence?
Yeah, well, actually, we're going to get into that, but yeah, we can get to the policy now. So it's going to be called the End Illegal Immigration Act, and Yorgey's correct. It's a 2-year minimum sentence for those who enter, and a 5-year minimum sentence for illegals re-entering with felony charges.
It's good that they're receiving some sort of punishment for it, but knowing the PRISM system, they gotta really make sure the border's secure. That's gonna be packed.
And I know he wants to triple the size of ICE to help deal with the situation.
Oh, sweet! Oh, nice.
Okay, so this is something we can't ignore. The wall. So at this current moment, Congress is going to pay for the wall, but Mexico will reimburse us through a system. And Kyle and I actually spoke about this before we came in today, that a year and a half ago, this seemed like the most ludicrous idea ever, that Mexico was going to pay for it. But it's not that unfathomable at its current state, because there's going to be a series of withholding remittances and the tariff if Mexico refuses to comply. And I've read it can be as high as 35%.
So is it that, like, so is it almost confirmed, like, it's not going to be a burden to the taxpayer at all? Like, is it just that what they're doing, like, they're using those funds that was already allocated for a fence, and then they're just using added money from, like, that they send over and capture just to pay for the wall?
I believe so. So, and also just to detail the policy, the way it's going to work is all the remittances are going to be withheld, but the people who are sending it back legally can write it off in their tax returns, and then it'll be sent through. Whereas the people who are here illegally can't do that. So then they'll filter out it that way. And any last comments on immigration?
This is how I felt about Trump's immigration plan since day one. I'll believe it when I see it. I know people are saying
Fair.
It's feasible, that it can happen, but I'll believe it when I see it. And if we wind up with a wall and no reimbursement, I think that we'll be worse off than if we didn't even have a wall. We could have made much better policy without a wall and much less spending. So I hope Trump decides he can't go back on the wall promise now. That's supposed to be his definitive moment of his first 4 years. But, we need real policy, not just a wall. Especially because, if the wall doesn't work and we wind up having this big, expensive, 50-foot wall with, shiny pearly gates, it's just going to make us look like an embarrassment.
But the wall just got 10 feet taller.
And there's a big door in the middle. There will be.
The big, beautiful door in the middle. And that's a great segue over to infrastructure, which means roads. Boo!
Ugh.
Ugh.
Sick.
But, and bridges, airports.
Stop it.
So this is going to
Roads in
come...
the sky.
This is going to come after the first 100 days. Bannon will be at the head of this effort. And it's a potentially bipartisan effort, but personally, I think he might get more support from Schumer and the Democrats.
So Bernie has said after Trump was elected that he would like to help in that matter. But that's like the other thing with like the same question I had with the wall. Like what's this going to mean for the taxpayer? Like if we want to, because it's all, oh shoot, I forget the statistic. It's like 60% of some specific. Is it? No, it's 60% of all of the gas tax that you have goes to your infrastructure. So like, what are we like? That's a thing. We got to be adjusting the budget like pretty hardcore here.
Yeah. So, and the potential cost is going to be somewhere between $500 billion and as high as $1 trillion. But that can be deceiving because I've told it'll be staggered out over the course of 10 years. So, and also what I found interesting with the policy is he wants help from private funding and businesses. And it's something, one of the most simple things that I saw was hiring a private sector accountant is so much cheaper than using a government accountant.
So I think I don't know if this exists in PA already, but there's so what the government does is they kind of like rent out specific parts of a road to private companies, and what they'll do, actually, the studies have shown that what these companies do is they place a toll, which I guess that could be that could be sold probably. But the studies have shown that these privately owned sections decreased, I think, or increased occupancy and was like really well paved. So, I mean, I think theoretically that could be really applied to like state-wise and like highways. But yeah, I think he's on the right track there for it.
I think if we go back in time to Republican President Eisenhower and the way that he set up the interstate highway system, that's what I think Trump should model his infrastructure plan after. Because there's going to be spending. It's not going to be a very fiscally conservative plan. So it has to be done really, really well. It has to last. We have to have infrastructure that isn't just going to fall apart, and it has to get done. We can't have Chris Christie's running this new infrastructure
bad
explosion. We need to set something up that'll work for a long time. Like this is a really big investment,
and
we can't lose money on it.
This, along with the wall, is where like Trump's construction experience is huge. Like he knows the best builders, the best people. Believe me. And he knows the people who can get this project. And like he always says about his construction projects, ahead of schedule and under budget. So finally, before we move on, he's going to finally approve the Keystone XL pipeline, and he also supports the Dakota Access Pipeline, which he understandably did not take a position on during the campaign. So, and I know there's going to be a protest at Pitt on January 25th, and does anybody want to give a synopsis?
I'll talk about that. On January 25th, a bunch of people are going to be getting together to stand to oppose all pipelines. All pipelines.
So Derek, my question, does that mean water pipelines as well?
They have not clarified, but if we look at what their event is called, it very clearly says all
pipelines.
So apparently wells are the new thing in liberal circles, which, I can get along with.
When there's wells.
There's wells.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
And so that's going to be very interesting. I think we're going to be very happy to cover that for the Maverick, and definitely I want to take some videos, see the signs and whatnot.
The thing is, I don't know who's going to be able to actually report for us, because a lot of us want to go, troll.
Participate.
Yeah, we need to participate. We need to, bring our...
Hashtag bring back the wells.
Yeah, we need to, do our old deport fascism, like a little nod to Pizza Party Ben.
Deport pipelines.
The namesake of my former nickname and my Twitter handle, Pizza Party Ben. All right, so Drain the Swamp is going to be one of the last topics today. Just to quickly, constitutional amendment for term limits. Do you guys support, yay or nay?
Oh, I support it.
Yes, 100%.
I just don't think it will happen. If 2018 shows anything and we get governorships, it's gonna get passed.
I think Yorgey's 100% right. We may have to wait until 2018, but just the policy is there. And there's going to be the Clean Up Corruption in Washington, D.C. Act, which is going to focus on ethics reform.
Oh, nice. And
of course, there was the huge debacle, which we talked about 2 weeks ago, about the Congressional Office on Ethics. So we're almost there. Supreme Court. I've heard that he could put out a name as early as the first 2 weeks for his choice.
Wow, that'd be cool.
And they could potentially go through the confirmation process during the first 100 days. And so my question, what are you guys looking for in a justice? Do you have a litmus test? Do you not?
Personally, I want a pro-life justice, because I think we could go after Roe v. Wade, not, just overturning it, but with the laws in Ohio and other states with the 20-week ban, I think we can, if we have the right justices, we can make sure that is, constitutional. That's my biggest issue, because I think this is a chance that we're not going to have very many more times in the future, because Democrat presidents love to put in liberal justices, and honestly we don't know what's going to happen after Trump. We don't know if this is going to be an era of Republican dominance, or if the Democrats will take over and try to undo everything that Trump does, just like we're undoing what Obama did.
I mean, I guess at the very least, I don't have a specific stance that the justice should have, but I guess just an overall conservative mindset. I just think what Scalia had was I don't know. Just overall, I just think Scalia had a really good head on his shoulders when it came to the Supreme Court.
And that's exactly Trump said during I think the third debate. He said that he wants to appoint somebody in the mold of Justice Scalia. And I think that debate, that moment, I think he quelled a lot of conservative fears about him by mentioning who does he want, and he wants somebody, because, let's just be clear, Trump does not have a guiding ideology, but he at least wants somebody who's going to run the Supreme Court as a conservative. So, and this is a segment I'm bringing back, before we wrap up, what did we learn on the Mavericast today?
What did we learn? Wells are the future.
Yep, that's fair.
True. I learned that the wall is feasible, because honestly, I was very afraid, because once he started saying maybe Congress will pay for the wall, I was like, I don't want a wall if Congress is paying for it. I don't want to spend all that money, because we're already going to spend the infrastructure money. Mm-hmm. But if we will be reimbursed on the wall, then it's going to be a good wall.
And I learned more about tax reform than I ever thought I would. From Yorgey. And so with that, I just want to give a quick reminder that the Pitt Maverick is on Patreon, and if it's $1, that helps tremendously in helping us produce more content and moving this project forward. We want to thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next week right here on the Mavericast.